Hi, everybody. I'm Jim. Great Books, Big Ideas. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'm going to continue on my slow march through the 10-year reading plan from the Great Books of the Western World. I got this list from their 1990 second edition, and this episode is all about the Renaissance writer, essayist, philosopher, Michel de Montaigne. And there's a selection of essays we're going to read here or just talk about briefly, introduce you to Montaigne. But the essays that they have on the list for year one are of custom and not easily changing unaccepted law, of pedantry, of the education of children. It is folly to measure the true and false by our own capacity, of cannibals, that the taste of good and evil depends in large part on the opinion we have of them, and finally on some verses of Virgil. So a healthy selection of essays here. Let me talk a little bit up front about Montaigne. His years are 1533 to 1592, and he is widely regarded as the first modern essayist. He invents the essay form, and I think perfected it. And to give you a sense of what he's doing, I wanted to read you this long first paragraph as a preface. They didn't even assign this in the Great Books list. I don't know why, but I think it's very important to set the table so you understand where Montaigne is coming from, and listen to the way he talks and the way he talks about himself to the reader. So this is titled, "The Author to the Reader." Reader, thou hast here an honest book. It doth at the outset forewarn thee that in contriving the same, I have proposed to myself no other than a domestic and private end. I have had no consideration at all, either to thy service or to my glory. My powers are not capable of any such design. I have dedicated it to the particular commodity of my kinsfolk and friends, so that having lost me, which they must do shortly, they may therein recover some traits of my conditions and humors, and by that means preserve more whole and more lifelike the knowledge they had of me. Had my intention been to seek the world's favor, I should surely have adorned myself with borrowed beauties. I desire therein to be viewed as I appear in mine own genuine, simple, and ordinary manner, without study and artifice, for it is myself I paint. My defects are therein to be read to the life, and my imperfections and my natural form, so far as public reverence hath permitted me. If I had lived among those nations which they say yet dwell under the sweet liberty of nature's primitive laws, I assure thee I would most willingly have painted myself quite fully and quite naked. Thus, reader, myself am the matter of my book. There's no reason thou shouldst employ thy leisure about so frivolous and vain a subject. Therefore, farewell. From Montaigne, June 12th, 1580. So a lot of attitude there, but he's stating his terms right up front. This is a book about myself. This is self-expression. This is a document of who I am, how I think, the way I look at the world, what I've learned about the world through all my reading and my experience. This is very Renaissance. A very Renaissance mentality, isn't it? And he's also kind of saying to you, the reader, you might not want to bother with us. This is really just about me and for my kinsfolk and my friends. But I really think he's writing this book because he wants to be your friend. And I've always thought of Montaigne as a friend. And he's just such a personal writer, and you really get to know the man. Unlike most authors I can think of, I feel like Montaigne is one of the people that you can come to know best through his writing. He's also saying in here, this is the unvarnished me. You're going to get all my imperfections, as well as, the good things, the good sides of me. He wants to paint a well-rounded portrait of himself, but he's doing it by way of this essay form in which he'll take up a topic and just ramble about it. So he's a one of a kind type of writer. So let me share with you just a few notes. We're not going to dig deep into like any of these particular essays, but we'll make a few comments along the way. Hopefully this will make sense. I like to think of Montaigne as literature's first blogger. He is a Renaissance blogger before they ever had the term blogger. Like the first time I read Montaigne, back around the year 2000, that's and blogs were just sort of like the new thing back then. That's what I thought of. He's basically blogging in print. And so if you like blogs, or you're a vlogger on YouTube, and so many of us, like, we have channels where we're just talking about what we think, about what we read and what we see. And, we're very much in the wake of Montaigne that way. So if you like blogs, you should come to like Montaigne. He writes in a very candid, self-effacing, wide-ranging style. He's genial, he's unpretentious, and yet he's quite learned. And that can be a challenge. But to ultimately understand Montaigne is to make a friend. He's a literary friend. He is the real deal. He's very good company for those times when it's just you and the book. You can feel a true connection to this man who lived hundreds of years ago. Now, despite the challenges his Renaissance style poses, and he does have a difficult style, especially his penchant for excessive quotations from classical authors, most of which are in Latin. His temperament may feel more modern than you might expect. So I imagine someone first coming to Montaigne, and I had this feeling, I was a little bit put off by him because the style was hard. Like he was really elusive. He's just always quoting classical authors, mostly classical, in Latin. And I should mention, he was born and raised learning the Latin language. His father insisted that the first few years of his life, all his teachers and caregivers would speak to him in Latin. He knew Latin better than French as a very wee lad. So he's very steeped in this. So I don't think he's trying to show off his knowledge or anything. This is just what he's read, and he did read a lot. So, but that makes it hard for us to crack into him. So you have to be a little bit patient and persistent as you work your way through Montaigne. He's going to win you over ultimately. Now, in one of my guidebooks, the Great Books guidebooks, I don't have it with me right now, but Mortimer Adler and Seymour Cain summarize, I think rightly, his moral and intellectual postures. That would be namely moderation, tolerance, compassion, love of peace, gentle irony, an inquiring spirit, and skepticism with regard to absolute judgments. Boy, are those qualities that are in short supply in our day and age. How I wish more people had these qualities that Montaigne had. But if you're thirsting for that, you're going to get it from him. So That's why we read the essays. Let's talk a little bit about the essay form. Montaigne, I think, and so many other people, this is not no new insight from me, but I agree with the people who have said that he invents the modern essay. And it's an open form. It's a boundless form. These are not 5-paragraph essays that you learn to write in school. This is essays as they should be written. Essays as a style of conversation with the reader. He explores topics in a very rambling, wandering, exploratory style. Doesn't the word essay in French mean to wander, to sojourn that way? And that's what the writing reads like. You never really know just where Montaigne is going. You know, he will give you the title of an essay, like Of Custom, but he's not necessarily going to stick to that topic, or he'll loop around to it and he'll go off on a lot of side lanes. And I don't think he really understands where he's going. He's just writing. You know, he's just getting these thoughts down. There are some constants in his approach to essay writing, though. So let me go over a few of those. He has this ceaseless, relentless interest in just about anything and everything. He loves to observe, to mull, to inquire, to speculate, to wonder. Curiosity is one of his greatest virtues. He also is very focused on, quote unquote, man, humans, who we are, how we act, what makes us tick. He is a psychologist of the human essence before they had the term psychology. He's, as we said earlier, he's very focused on himself and the self. So self-analysis is a property of Montaigne's work. He is the case in point often to test the observations and ideas about human character and behavior that he has or that he's reading in other sources. So he sort of, there's really sort of like two types of sources that he tends to pull from. One is all these classical texts and the history and all that, but then also himself, his own experiences, his own observations, and he probes, he analyzes that. And then lastly, this relates to the skeptic in him. There's uncertainty is a feature of his style. Everything changes, even ourselves. And Montaigne is a skeptic about anyone that purports to have the truth cornered. He is not on your side with that. So the truth will change. Things are changeable. People are changeable. And he remains mildly skeptical about everything that he writes about. And that actually, I think, is refreshing. But anyway, as a result, his style can be challenging. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Like, he can be difficult. He can be inconsistent. He can be ambiguous. He gets easily distracted. And we, the poor readers, are along for this ride. So you have to brace yourself. But once you read a number of these essays, you're going to hopefully be on board. If you read Montaigne with patience, you will notice his wisdom coming to the fore, and he will become a presence in your life. He just feels like such a wise man to me, even though he's self-deprecating. You know, he's just got so much. He's such a knack for human nature. Like he gets it, and he's learned it along the way through his life. You have a friend in Montaigne. So just to make a few comments about his essays, just in passing, because to do any kind of thorough coverage would take way too long, and I want you to sort of discover Montaigne on your own. But if we can make a few comments here and there. So for the one essay called "That the Taste of Good and Evil Depends in large part on the opinion we have of them," this is a good essay for um, uh, for demonstrating Montaigne's stoicism, his stoical side. I actually think of him as a blend of the Stoic and the Epicurean. Like he's both, and he might even be a little more Epicurean than Stoic, but he kind of dances between those poles. This is from the beginning of the essay, and we'll just read a paragraph or so. Men, says an ancient Greek sentence, are tormented with the opinions they have of things, and not by the things themselves. It were a great victory obtained for the relief of our miserable human condition, could this proposition be established for certain and true throughout. For if evils have no admission into us, but by the judgment we ourselves make of them, it should seem that it is then in our own power to despise them or to turn them to good. If things surrender themselves to our mercy, why do we not convert and accommodate them to our advantage? If what we call evil and torment is neither evil nor torment of itself, but only that our fancy gives it that quality, it is in us to change it, and it being in our own choice, if there be no constraint upon us, as we must certainly be very strange fools to take arms for the side which is most offensive to us, and to give sickness, want, and contempt a bitter and nauseous taste, if it be in our power to give them a pleasant relish. And if fortune simply providing the matter, 'tis for us to give it the form. Now, that what we call evil is not so of itself, or at least to that degree that we make it, and that it depends on us to give it another taste and complexion, for all comes to one. Let us examine how that can be maintained. So that's his setup paragraph for the essay. He's throwing out all these questions. He's a very inquisitive, curious guy. If the original being of those things we fear had power to lodge itself in us by its own authority, it would then lodge itself alike and in like manner in all. For men are all of the same kind, and saving in greater and less proportions, are all provided with the same utensils and instruments to conceive and to judge. But the diversity of opinions we have of those things clearly evidences that they only enter us by composition. One person, peradventure, admits them in their true being, but 1,000 others give them a new and contrary being in them. We hold death, poverty, and pain for our principal enemies. Now, this death, which some repute the most dreadful of all dreadful things, who does not know that others call it the only secure harbor from the storms and tempests of life, the sovereign good of nature, the sole support of liberty, and the common and prompt remedy of all evils. And as the one expect it with fear and trembling, the others support it with greater ease than life. So you can see how he's kind of tacking back and forth to these different positions and entertaining them. Later, he considers how pain, not death, is the greater concern. We shy away from pain. We fear pain more than death. But our minds can lessen the pain if we think it so. We have a lot of control about how we think about these things. Your soul is sovereign in Montaigne's view. Use your powers of reason to control how we think agreeably. If you're disciplined, you can have some control over that. You can see how that's the stoicism coming out, right? Let me turn to the essay, very famous essay of his called Of Cannibals. And this is very timely in his time because the, quote, New World had recently been discovered, and the Europeans are making contact with people they've never seen before, the Native Americans, the indigenous populations. And that's what this essay is about, that encounter. This is about man in the state of nature, which is a theme that you're going to see coming up later in the great books with the Enlightenment philosophers and political theorists. But the natives in the New World have now been kind of coming back. Some of them have come back to Europe, and Europeans are actually like talking to these people and learning from them. So this encounter, this exchange, is what Of Cannibals is about. And Montaigne's assumption is that a primitive man is closer to the state of nature. I should put primitive in quotes, but the indigenous man is closer to the state of nature. He's more right, he's more natural than the civilized man, the, quote, European civilized man, who is portrayed in this essay as being corrupt and confused and degenerate. The quote, savages of the New World, some of whom participate in cannibalism, which sounds about as savage as you can get. He praises them for their ethics and for their love of their wives. And he actually is very interested in the anthropology of these indigenous peoples. He spends a lot of time talking about their customs, and it just fascinates him. And he's, implicitly comparing back to Europe, and he wants us to think of those comparisons too. So, okay, what about the big question is the cannibalism? Because that seems to be like super problematic. I mean, I'm really not into eating other people. So isn't that barbaric to be a cannibal? Well, Montaigne says, sure, it's barbaric, but there's a reason for the cannibalism in these cultures. It's the ultimate revenge on your enemies in war. And this is important. Cannibalism is less inhumane than the way civilized men execute people. We, the Westerners, the quote, civilized Europeans, are treacherous, disloyal, tyrannical, cruel, possessive, and in war, far less noble. So is it really so barbaric when you wag your finger at these cannibals who have a very kind of customary way of doing this activity? It's only in the context of getting revenge on your enemies and so forth, versus the kind of out of bounds cruelty and treachery and barbarism that Montaigne sees in his own country of France and in Italy and other parts of Europe. And folks, just turn on your TV for examples of the barbarism. Open your newspaper, go to your news feed. We don't have to look far for examples here. So that's just a sampling of some of the essays of Montaigne that were listed in our reading plan. I hope if you are following this along, and I don't know how many people are actually reading these essays along with me, but You never know who's going to bump into these videos, but that's just a sampling. And I actually thought they maybe gave you too much essays to read. There was a lot of pages to get through, especially if you're just kind of getting started with Montaigne. But there's some really good ones in here, and you're getting a good picture of the range of his style. But just remember, think of Montaigne as your best literary friend. And you can sit down with him in your armchairs and have a nice chat. Listen carefully to him, wander with him, speculate with him, be skeptical, be observant, and enjoy the ride. Okay, next up on our Great Books 10-year plan, one of my favorite plays, and that is Shakespeare, Hamlet. This comes from volume 2 in this set, and it's a perfect segue from Montaigne. That's what's next up on our 10-year plan. Thanks for joining me. I hope those of you who attempted Montaigne had some success with him. And if you have questions, especially about essays maybe that I didn't cover here, or you just have responses, I'm interested in how Montaigne went down for you. Like, did you enjoy his style? Was it difficult? How did you get over the difficulties? Let us know in the comments. Thanks always for watching, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.